Yeah. I think... I don't know what I mean. I have a lot of souls. It's almost like I just killed a boss. Let's talk to Melentia to get her back to Majula. I like the idea that this game put forward of the hub area where you send NPCs back and you slowly build this weird, like, little community in it. It's not the best executed, especially considering that with some of the NPCs you just have to go exhausting their dialogue, and there's no real telegraphing of that, because all of the Souls games going forward, they went with the same lack of hand-holding, at least somewhat. They stuck to that part of the identity. However, then they would also try to introduce some new mechanics, which maybe would have been benefited by slightly more hand-holding. And I'm one of the last people to ever advocate just for straight-up hand-holding. However, especially when you're introducing a new mechanic to an established series, always level up adaptability, it gives you iframes. When you're introducing a new mechanic to an established series, it's best to at least explain what the fuck your mechanic is doing. Otherwise, players are wont to get a little confused. And I think that was, you know, even if there was a simple pop-up message of, well, Melentia almost sort of has that when she says, high time I moved out of this place. But the fact that you have to get through her dialogue to get to the message is a bad sign. It's an example where you would have to know and use a mechanic to learn about a mechanic. It's like in Burnout Paradise, where you can cancel and leave a race if you just park your car and sit there for a minute. But they never tell you this. The only way you find out about doing it and get the tutorial message on how to do it is by doing it, which is frustrating, to say the least. So, wait, what am I doing? I've already opened the way forward. And especially with the Souls game, I'm not one to outright advocate and call for hand-holding, because one of the things that I fell in love with this game is how freeing it is and how much it allows the player to find their own way forward. So it's a bit remiss to call for hand-holding, but again, if you're going to introduce a new mechanic that goes against the convention of pre-established training in a series, it might be best to give the player a means with which to understand this new mechanic and how it's going to change the rules. Because Dark Souls 2, on the one hand, you would say that, you know, each game in the series has to function as its own thing and has to assume that the player has never played the previous game. And that's absolutely true. However, this game, as well as Dark Souls 3, they both, Dark Souls 3 in particular, it almost requires a knowledge of certain sequences in Dark Souls 1 and 2. Well, a lot more than 2, but there's a difference between slight homage and I wouldn't know what is happening unless I had context from another game. And as well, the lack of hand-holding and tutorialization in games other than this one, because this has a very straightforward tutorial. Both Dark Souls 1 and 3 have a sort of an action in medias res tutorial, where the player is thrust into things to figure them out. But this game has a much more straightforward tutorial in that it's an area that only ever serves as a tutorial. Where, well, I guess Dark Souls 3 kind of has that too. Dark Souls 1 is really the only exception where there is a use for and point of the asylum other than just being a tutorial area. The player The player doesn't have to come back, but the player is strongly incentivized to come back so that they can easily get into Painted World. As well, the Rusted Iron Ring, or as I call it, the Land Shark Ring, which the player, again, not required, but it will make things a lot easier for them. I'm getting out of here. Magnanimous AI. Fucking unprecedented. The fuck was that? Yeah, and Dark Souls has never been great, but this game in particular, it's a bit... Oh boy. So here's Pate. He's definitely trustworthy. Definitely. This gate closes when you get just far enough away that you can't get back in. So here's an example of a ambush that's supposed to be an ambush in universe. This is their gay boy funhouse. They lure people in and then beat on them with meat rods. But again, in the words of a random summoning message, try tongue butthole. No, wait. Try luring it out one at a time. And there we go. Fine work. Yes, thank you. Now what is this? Aromatic ooze. Oh. You know, I once put some aromatic ooze on a wash rag and then stuffed it in a you know what, never mind. Probably shouldn't admit that on there.
Well, I hope be kept. Oh. It allows undead with luck. Well, I hope be kept.
Come a cropper. That's an interesting turn of phrase. Did I see? I hallucinated for a second. I thought I was seeing a big plump ass on the other side of this character. Stupid, sexy hollow. These guys... They can't aim for shit until they can. Now, there is some good loot up there, but the jump to get it is basically luck. Platforming in Dark Souls fucking sucks. Stop asking us to do it. Quote, very wise man. It was me. I said it. I think Mahler is the one who said that. By the way, if you don't watch Mahler, watch Mahler. Makes good content. Stay away from his Discord. It's a wretched hive of scum and villainy. And hey, look, an ambush. I love that stupid attack animation. He's running at you. What a fucking dumbass. You come up here and you get a halberd and then you get ambushed again. Game loves throwing ambushes at you. The trick with this one is don't... You see, it's not to get... I was going to say it's not to get forced into rolling off and making an error, but it's really battling against the terrible sliding physics that some slopes have. That was a good one. That was a good meme. Solid meme. A meme worth sharing with your friends and family. A meme that PewDiePie should kill. And now, we wait. Alright, well, he took a weird path. One of the things that stands out to me in this game in particular, and this is sometimes the case in Dark Souls 1, but one thing that stands out as being very much a thing in this game is that there is almost no weapons where I feel incentivized to ever use the heavy attack. And the heavy attacks in Dark Souls 1 were a massive mixed bag. With certain weapons it was the best attack to use, and with a lot of weapons it was the absolute worst attack to use, and you should never use it. With this game I don't know that I could point to any weapon where the heavy attack is an absolute must-use, other than maybe something like the Moonlight Greatsword where it fires a beam. Anytime that the heavy attack has a magic effect, I guess that would be an example. Alright, now I just want the souls. There we go. No. You will fight me down here where I can't be cheesed off. Haha. Who's the big meat now, motherfucker? Okay, well. How did you do that? Alright. All's well that ends well.